I'd lock the door and barricade those doors with chairs, and I'd dump them out, and then I would find exactly what I needed. The first time I did it, I found a bottle of 100 Percocets. I was never so happy in my life. Oh my gosh, look at this.
Imagine being 34 years old, the youngest sheriff in Ohio. Power, respect, the badge, and then imagine losing it all. 43 counts he was indicted on, sent off to prison, and lost absolutely everything. Today, I'm sitting with the man that lived that fall and is here to talk about it. The pills, the power, prison, redemption, Sheriff Kyle Overmyer. All right, Kyle, let's get into it, man. So before we get to the badge headlines, let's talk about Kyle, man. What was Kyle like as a kid? Childhood, parents, sports? Like, what shaped you, man?
Kyle grew up in the all-American family. Parents still married today after 50 plus years. Sometimes I wonder how the old school bickering, but next of course, they're in love. Um, my father, he was a captain at the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office, law enforcement all his life. My mother, she worked at a respectable construction business in the office. They made sure we had, 3 square meals, roof over the head, and a good education. They actually sent me to a Catholic private school from third grade on, and I even graduated from Catholic school. So he would keep me away from supposedly the streets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, sports wise, I played football, I wrestled, baseball, and I was also a boxer.
You look like a wrestler, man. You're short, you're strong, you're tough. You got, like, how's your ears?
Yes, I had cauliflower
All
ear.
right, all right.
Yes, it's been lanced, everything. Yeah, so I went through all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so growing up, was law enforcement on your mind? Was it on your radar? Or was it like the furthest thing that you wanted to think about since your dad was, living that out?
It was the furthest thing. I was into art. I'm a painter. I did a lot of drawing. So when I graduated from high school in 1992, I went off to University of Toledo and studied at the Toledo Museum of Art for 2 years. Believe it or not, a lot of people when they get to talking to me, they're shocked by my exterior. That you got that soft side. You like to paint and draw. You're artistic. But I am. That's what I was into, and I looked at myself. I was going to be an artist someday, But after 2 years, and of course, some partying and being there, and not knowing who Kyle Overmyer was, I bailed out and quit college. I dropped out.
So every kid growing up learns something about power and authority early on or at some point. Like, when was the first time that you really started learning about like power and authority? Or when was the first time that you just rebelled and like bucked power?
So I'll never forget. I went away and I didn't see my parents for a while. When I was in college, so I let my hair grow long. I got both of my ears pierced. And when my dad drove me home and picked me up, because I didn't have a vehicle up there my freshman year of college, I'll never forget, I had an old school Seattle Seahawks. I love Brian Bosworth. So
Yeah, for sure.
of course, the Boz. And I had an old corduroy Seahawks hat on to pull back my hair. And my dad looks at me in the truck when he's taking me home. He goes, "Take that hat off." And I said, my hair plops down. He says, "We're going to the barber on the way home." Made me get my hair cut. I took my hoop earrings out. That was what was in back there in the
Yeah.
90s. And I got clean cut again. And that's where I really kind of felt like I was rebelling for once, trying to be who Kyle wanted to be.
Yeah. I remember I had both my ears pierced. I got my hair highlighted. And when I came home as a high school kid, man, my dad was a Southern Baptist, right? Like his
Okay.
dad was a Southern Baptist preacher,
Yeah.
like serious Southern Baptist preacher. So when I came home with my ears pierced and my hair highlighted, man, it was a rough night. It was a long night. I thought I was gonna rip them out of my ears, but I'm still here. So
Yeah. So you can relate, Todd.
yeah,
You can
I'm there.
relate.
So think of childhood. What's the one memory from your upbringing that like still echoes today? Like, is there something that like you always think about, or there good, bad? Like, what is it?
Well, one of the things, especially, when I even thought about getting into law enforcement, my father, of course, was against it, said, "Forget it, go get a factory job." I was the first college educated person actually in my family, believe it or not. Nobody was college educated. And I'll talk about it. I went on to, get 2 college degrees, but he was always I always looked up to him, but I felt like I could never live up to what he wanted as a son.
Sure.
So I struggled with that, and there was always that struggle between us that I was never good enough. And so that was always in my mind, and I think as time went on, that was a key to me to excel in life. My dad's ability to say, "You know what? You're not good enough. You gotta push yourself harder."
Hmm.
So even today, I still do it.
Yeah. I don't have that feeling. I wasn't close to my dad. My dad wasn't like ultra successful. He didn't have some great job. But I hear a lot of guys say that. A lot of friends I have, they have that same feeling from, growing up, feeling like they couldn't impress their dad or,
Mhm.
like you're and I think to myself, I wish I had that feeling, you know? But if I'm talking to my friend that had that feeling, they're like, "Man, I could have done without it." It's
Yeah.
it's interesting what we want when we don't have it, and then when we have it, what we wish that we wouldn't have had. Like I always think like that.
But today, Todd, after going through what I went through, I realized that I need to be grateful for it.
Yeah,
He loves me, and I think maybe that was his way of pushing me to say, "I know you're great, but I always know you can do better, so don't shortchange yourself."
sure. All right, finish the sentence for me. When I was a young man, I thought power meant,
I thought it meant money then.
yeah,
I did. But as you go on, you know, money isn't everything. It's not. And my dad even used to say this to me, and it's interesting. He has changed his tune since now he's in his 80s. He used to say, "Kyle, money isn't everything, it's the only thing."
yeah,
And he was a hustler. He worked 5 jobs on top of being, working at the sheriff's office. He always wanted to have more and provide more. But now as the time went on, he's changed his tune. He says, it's health, of course, as you get older,
sure.
because you can't buy health." And then power, I got a taste of what power was as you started out, in this podcast at 34 years old, having power behind the badge.
Yeah, it evolves over time for everybody. You know what power really means. But like 1996, you started Sandusky
Hmm.
County Sheriff's Office, right, as a corrections officer.
Correct.
So go back then. You put your first uniform on.
Hmm.
What'd that feel like?
It was a great feeling because my father had told me not to go to the police academy, and I didn't listen to him. So I put the money together, and I went on my own. I did it. But he was at my graduation. He got to hand me my certificate, which it made me feel proud, even though he told me not to do it. And then I, of course, did it. And then I go and put it on and put the uniform on. And actually, I started Cinco de Mayo in 1996. I'll never forget that.
I mean, that's a good day to just have as a celebration day every year,
Yes.
man.
Yeah, and it was, and I'm like, "Here I am, I worked hard, and I'm following in my dad's footsteps." And, yeah, I'll never forget that, putting the uniform on, you know, and then interesting because then I'm in corrections, and then I'm running into some of the people that I grew up with in that same jail, which was kinda interesting.
Yeah. 2001, you moved to road patrol, right?
Yep.
And then just a couple years after that, you end up in the detective section handling, homicides, sex crimes, narcotics. What was it that drew you to like the challenging work, the harder crimes, the more intense stuff? Like what drew you into that part of law enforcement?
Well, Todd, during that time, in the 90s, we had been flooded with a lot of big city people coming in, organized crime in regards to drugs. And I also graduated from the FBI SWAT Academy too. I was on the SWAT team. Graduated from hostage negotiation school through the FBI. So I'd done that facet, and then during that time prior to being a detective, I was involved with raiding these houses and seeing these guys. They're out there selling crack. That was the big thing back then, was
Sure.
crack. And now it's fentanyl, of course. And I saw that, and I saw what it was doing to our community. But then I thought, look at these guys. These guys are selling crack. They're making more money than me. And it kind of bothered me where it got in the back of my head. It's like, you know what? If I can get to that point where I can hinder these guys from making all that money because I know I work harder and I put my life on the line, I want to take these guys out. It was like almost a jealousy or an envy. Like
Yeah.
they're selling crack on the streets, and I'm busting my hump every day, and they're living the life, dressing nice, you know, Mercedes Benzes, and I'm driving a Cavalier. You know what I mean?
All right. So people hear narcotics investigations, they immediately think undercover, right? So did you? I mean, you went undercover,
I
right?
did. I
Yeah.
did. I went back to college. I ended up getting my associate's degree in criminal justice, and I was married to my first wife, Melanie, and we had our first child, Michaela, who you know who Michaela is,
Mhm.
and um, we had her back in July 23rd, 2000. We actually had her one day before our 1 year anniversary. Crazy enough, she was an oops, but a great oops, you
Yeah.
know.
I
And
have two of those, by the way.
okay, you know where
Yeah.
I'm coming from, Ty. So I found myself wanting to do more, and Melanie was educated. She had went to Kent State. She had a great career. Actually, she ran track there, and she was a teacher. So she always encouraged me to go back to college and say, "Hey, if you want to do more, you better go back to college." So I did. And then I ended up finishing my bachelor's degree in business administration because I started talking to some federal agents. They said, "Hey, you finish that degree, you could be one of us someday." So, Todd, I got that in my head after I did that, that you know what, after time, I knew I could make more money at the federal level, and there were a lot more exciting things to do.
Sure.
Well, I started to interview on the federal level, and I'll never forget, we were getting ready to have our second child, which is Dylan, and he was going to be born in 2003, November 2003. And I get a phone call actually from the sheriff, and he says, "Hey, Kyle, I'd like to meet with you." And I'm like, "What's the sheriff calling me about? I mean, he's way too busy. He's got a lot going on. That never happens." He says, "Look, you're not in trouble, but I want to talk to you." So he invites me down for lunch the next day, and I go meet with him. And it was a Chinese restaurant, Golden Dragon. It was his favorite spot. Everybody used to go there. And he says, "Hey, I understand that you're probably going to leave me." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "How'd you hear that?" He goes, "I hear everything. All right." He said, "I really don't want you to go because when I was working road patrol, because I was working road patrol, I was really taking a lot of drugs off the streets. I was taking money, guns. I was making a real impact in the community." And he loved that. And it made him look good. And it was cutting down on crime in Sandusky County.
Sure.
So he says, "I have a spot open in the detective bureau. Would, would that be something you'd be interested in?" I'm like, "Well," he says, "I really hate to lose you." And he says, "I'll tell you what, I'll sweeten the pie. I'll make you a detective sergeant. How about that?" Then I said, "I'm in."
Locked you in, huh?
That's how I did it. And I was
Yeah.
about 27, 28. So I was a young detective sergeant, you know. So I was actually over all these guys that had been there 20 plus years. And here I am, some young guy coming in the detective bureau doing the big cases. So
Yeah.
that's how it all happened, Todd.
You know, one of the crazy things about law enforcement, and I was one of these guys. Sounds like you were like that too. A lot of people don't understand. Like, it's not. There's no like magic bullet out there. Like, I'm gonna pull that car over and I'm going to get dope or I'm going to get guns or whatever.
Right.
Some guys just have that feel. Like, it's late at night. You can't see in the car. Car drives by you, and you get that little goosebump and tingly feeling. You're like, it's a good car, man. Let's go get it. Oh, license plate lights out. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Some guys just have that about them.
And that's what I had. And so it went from there, and we started talking about undercover. So my first undercover wasn't even in working dope. It was actually, we had a huge theft ring going on, and we had probably 2 to 300,000 in like Kubotas, tractors, lawnmowers being stolen. And what happened, I ended up coming across one of the guys that was involved that had a warrant. Well, he got spooked and said, "Hey, I'll cooperate and help you out." And he starts listing off all these um breaking and enterings and all this stuff. And I'm like, this guy knows what he talk about. So we ended up doing a deal with him. He turns an informant. He ends up taking me along. I start stealing stuff throughout the county, and I go by the name of Bert then. And get introduced to the ringleader.
I'm not sure that I see you as a Bert, man.
I didn't. It was a great name to come up with, and it was easy
Did
to
you have a
remember.
partner named Ernie or
Uh,
no?
no, and I don't look like a bird. But anyhow, that was my first undercover stealing, and then eventually they swept in. They actually arrested me, booked me into a county over jail where we actually took down the guy. Actually, he was like an engineer at Ford Motor Company who was buying stolen stuff, and the rest of the guys actually were retired Boilermakers,
Oh, really?
and they went around and would like kind of spot things and hire these guys that were, drug addicts to feed their habit. They go out and steal and then pay them, and they would make money and profit off of it. So that was my first ever actual undercover stint in law enforcement.
Now, but you had, I guess that's the crazy thing that sometimes you think about is you grew up in that area,
I
right?
did.
And you'd been on the police department for a couple years.
Hmm.
So how did you just transition into the undercover work and not have people just recognizing you or whatever? Was it because it was like late night thefts and
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
and I a lot of times what happened, these individuals were from out of town, so they didn't know me, which
Okay,
was great.
makes it a little bit easier.
It was. And then eventually, I changed my appearance a lot, grew facial hair, the different clothing, so I could fit right in and I could talk the talk. I knew the talk. I knew I'm a street guy. I really am in
Yeah,
essence. I grew up, boxing, in the neighborhood and knew all these people. So I had the lingo down. And then eventually, I hit the drug cases big. That was the big thing. And I started partnering with the local police department, BCI and I, DEA. We were, there were sweeps where we'd get like 50, 60 at a time and do roundups of drug traffickers, in Sandusky County. I mean, we were boarding up houses, taking money, cars. Even we took down a pizza business that was delivering drugs in pizza boxes, and they looked like they were delivering pizzas. Bars, we boarded up bars. So I was out there when I went and became a detective sergeant. I went crazy.
yeah,
And within that next year, sheriff came to me. He says, "You know what? After the year, congratulations, you're a captain now. Merry Christmas." And so I became a captain within a year.
yeah. I mean, it happened fast. Let's
It
talk
happened.
about the pizza real quick. How they here's you remember that movie? The women would call the pizza place. They'd order like extra mushrooms or anchovies or something,
Yes.
and then the guy delivery driver knew that like they want a young pool boy.
Yeah. Well,
Is that how they were ordering the
we would
drugs?
do the pizza and say, "Could you put a little extra green on the top?"
Oh, okay.
And that's what we got, the green.
Yeah, and what were they? Was that flour or what were they selling with the pizza? Yeah,
Green,
yeah,
So that's what that would do, and you could get as much as you wanted. It was, I was pretty, I thought I was impressed with them,
yeah.
but we shut that down too. But most of the stuff we were dealing with was rock and powder in Sandusky County at the time. That was the trend then. And then eventually I come across somebody else, and I ended up picking off a Hispanic guy who was deeply involved in the organization, and he had several ounces of powder on him, and he was on the radar of the DEA. We brought him on board to speak, and he chose me as his partner to work undercover, and I went by Scotty Pitts. The name Scotty Pitts is what I did.
Now was that a playoff of Scottie Pippen from the Bulls? Were you a Bulls fan?
No, no, it
How'd you
just
choose Scottie Pitts? Like,
it
what
was
was
it
your
was
what
a
was your
it
rationale
was a
for?
quick, catchy name,
Yeah,
and I would never forget it. So there was a point that it got so large, we would, always we would purchase about 17 to 20 keys at a time, bring them in a storage unit, rent a storage unit, break the tire down. They were shipped up from the border, and I did business with these guys.
yeah. How much of your early days in your career do you think shaped kind of who you became later on? Like working the hard cases, working the stuff that was challenging. Do you think that got you ready for what you ultimately end up doing at the sheriff department as a sheriff?
I do. I do. And I think it actually helped mold me for what we'll talk about in the future too. For life, life 101. And I think there was different I think I learned a lot more outside the classroom than I did inside the classroom.
I mean, I think that's a story with a lot of things we do, though, right?
It is. Of course, I'm glad I went and got a couple college degrees, but my master's is in life now,
Yeah.
and that's what it's all about.
That, and you get so much more out of that, man.
You
Like,
do.
it's, they can give you a degree, you can learn all kinds of things. And I talk about it's hard when you have kids too, right? Because you don't want to tell your kids, like, hey, you don't need to go to college.
Right.
But I'm here to tell you, you don't need to go to college, right? But you have to have a great plan if you're not going to.
You do.
And I'll support whatever you do as long as it's 150 miles an hour.
And I see, a lot of kids now, they think that social media and YouTube is going to make them money. But I really, deep down, you got to be a savage in this day and age to make money and to be
Yeah.
successful. A savage, and there's not many Todd. There's not that many savages around.
There's a lot of people that want to be savages.
Want to be, but aren't.
They just don't want to do what savages do.
They don't want to put the work in.
2008, you were appointed sheriff at age 34.
Yes.
Youngest sheriff in Ohio history at that point.
Yep. I had to make this decision, and I went against my chief deputy who had 30 plus years.
How'd that moment feel? Just like that moment right there when you were appointed sheriff at 34, like what was the feeling inside of you?
It was one of the greatest highs ever.
Yeah.
It was amazing because I thought, here I am, 34. Don't have much time, man. But I knew that the sheriff prior to that wanted that. And I always honor my word. When somebody tells me and I tell them I'm going to do something, I do it. I have to do it.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of guys out there thinking, like, how in the hell did he make sheriff at 34? So what led up to you being able to be appointed at sheriff at like that such a young age?
So, Sheriff Gangler, rest his soul, he was like a mentor to me. He saw so much. We talked about how he saw that much into me to invest in me to make me a young detective sergeant, and within a year, a detective captain. He was a real believer in me. But I always went out and I showed up for him, every day. I was one of these guys that, of course, I never wanted to call in sick. I
Right.
loved work. I loved going out there. I loved taking people off the streets that didn't need to be there. And it got to the point where when I was a detective, he got me involved with the organized crime board down in Columbus. I was an alternate with him because he was on the board, and he took me along. And so those rides on a monthly basis, we would have long talks. And, that's when he said, Kyle, I see you to be me someday. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, you can be the next sheriff after I'm done. I said, oh my God, you think so? He says, yes. So Sandusky County is a Republican county.
Yeah.
He was a Republican sheriff as well. So then he takes me and gets me acquainted with the Republican Central Committee, and then I get appointed, which is nice. So I'm on the committee as well.
Now hold on. Where did he go at that time?
So here's what happened. So I'll never forget. It was late August, and it was on a Wednesday. We're driving down, and he says, "Hey, I'm setting you up. I'm mentoring you. If anything ever happens to me, I still want you to run for sheriff." That Sunday, I get a phone call. He died.
Really? That quick after he told you that, huh?
Kind of strange.
Now, at that moment when he passed away, were you thinking, oh man, like all my chances, my hopes? Because I'm sure your hopes were up as you're talking to him. You're like, they're all gone now.
There was so much going on because, yeah, I was a pallbearer actually for his funeral.
Hmm.
I mean, the family chose me, and it was an honor to do it. And of all this stuff, I'm caught up. Here I am mourning for my mentor, and like, oh my gosh, and I'll never forget, you know, coming home and having that talk with my wife. I'm like, I'm so young, but if I go up against my chief deputy, this can cause me a lot of trouble. I mean, he could do whatever he wants with me. I can go back in the jail, and I'm no longer gonna.
It's like buying a lottery ticket.
It is.
You're either going to win and have the success that you wanted, or man, you're going to get buried.
So I had about a week to put it all together. So what I did, and my dad actually rode with me in the car. I went to every central committee member and visited them and sat down and talked to them and told them why I wanted to be sheriff. and my dad supported me. He rolled with me.
Now, what was his rank at that time?
Um, he was actually he had retired, and then he was working courthouse security, but he was still under my colors, which
Oh,
was
okay.
interesting.
Now, when he retired, what rank did he go
He
out
was a
on?
captain.
Okay. So, like in that moment where you're like thinking, okay, maybe this is the time for me to be sheriff, and the old sheriff had said, like, I want you to take this role. Was there ever like any animosity with your dad that maybe you were going to achieve something that he hadn't been able to achieve?
No, no, because I'll not. So this is I'll never forget this. So he goes with me, and he was there the night, and they came in, and because you got to speak in front of them then too, and then you leave, and they got to vote and that, and unanimously they said, "You're our new sheriff," you know. And I'll never forget. My dad's like, comes outside. He goes, "Kyle, you got more balls than I ever had. Good for you." And that changed some things between us, you know.
Sure.
We actually got closer, where I would lean on him for advice. And when I had things going on at the sheriff's office, he was a great person of reason because he'd been through it and been around it so long. And everybody respected him. Actually, his nickname's Smokey, and everybody knew Smokey. I mean, everybody knew my dad, and everybody respected him. And he had a lot of great knowledge. He still does today. And he always had some crazy sayings. Like one of his most famous one was, I'm too old of a cat to get screwed by a kitten,
Yeah.
things like that, and um he he was a good partner. Like I'd stop out and see him at the house, or I'd call him on the phone, and it was good. He was happy for me. He was
Yeah.
really happy.
Sounds like, we always call him like a cop's cop, right? Guys respect you, like they care about the guys. Like there's a different type of leader. And you don't always get the cop's cop type leader.
No, and one of the biggest things he taught me, and it still carries on today, Kyle, always treat others the way you want to be treated, and you'll go far. He was right.
So how long was your appointment for? Because you didn't have to run for election or anything, but you get appointed. How long was that for? Like
Then
how
I
long
had to
did
get ready for reelection for another 4 years.
yeah.
Nobody. I was kicking butt. I was really killing it. So one of the things that I did, and I'll talk about it, during 2008, that was the money crunch. There was a lot of foreclosures going
Sure.
on. So my first meeting with the county commissioners that hold the purse strings to the budget, I'll never forget. I go into that meeting. It was only like probably a week or two after I was appointed, and they tell me I got to cut like almost $300,000.
Oh wow.
And that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I had like a $4 million a year budget. So I had to run a jail, detective bureau, road patrol, communication center. I had a civil office. I had almost like 100 employees. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't want to cut staff. I don't want to put the community at risk. So what am I going to do? So one of the things I did, I started going around looking at ways I could cut on the budget that wouldn't hinder us. One of the biggest pieces of that puzzle was the jail with the inmates and feeding them. So I'll never forget, I'm going through all this, taking notes, figuring this stuff out. I walk outside the one day in our fenced in area, we got like 2 acres. I'm thinking, man, this is just empty land. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could have a garden here. So I approached the idea. I started to go around greenhouses, some of the farmers, talk to them about it. What they do? They all donated. So I
Nice.
had basically a little mini farm of vegetables inside that fenced in area at the jail, and the inmates raised it. So we turned around, raised it, then we harvested and utilized that in the kitchen. I even went as far the following year. Somebody donated a chicken coop. We raised our own chickens. I saved thousands and thousands of dollars. It helped also rehabilitate the inmates. They would argue about who was going to go out and take care of the chickens and who was going to go out there and take care of the vegetables. It actually ended up giving me the first ever Taxpayer Hero Award in the state of Ohio as the sheriff by actually Dave Yost, who was the state auditor and today's the attorney general.
Yeah. But you know what? It makes sense though, right? Like you kicked ass on the street, you made big bust, you made, just great arrest, and then you get in as sheriff, and now you have to do it in a different way. Like you have to conquer that in a different way because you're in the office, you're inside, you can't just go out and make the big arrest every day,
You're right.
but you still have to make big moves, and that sounds like one of them.
And you got to think outside the box.
Yeah,
And when I would bust people on the streets, I always thought outside the box. Like we talked about, you're not using your turn signal, your tail lights out, probable cause. So I had to look at it the same way, like you're saying, Todd. And
yeah,
that's how I did business.
yeah. You're a young guy when you get appointed sheriff. How much does that affect you? Like the way the guys treated you, the maybe like how long it took you to get respect of people. Like what was that like being the youngest sheriff in Ohio at that time?
So I'll never forget the first meeting I had to have all the deputies and everybody in the big conference room and that. I said, everybody, I'm going to have an open door policy. When there's a problem or you want to talk to me, my door is always open. And I said one more thing: don't fear me, respect me. That's all I ask.
Hmm.
And it kind of set the tone for everybody.
Yeah,
And what was also something good I think I did, I'd go out and ride with the guys, even on midnight shift, because I didn't want them to think I forgot where I came from, because I didn't. I
you
was still
enjoyed
one of
it
them.
still too, didn't you? Like you're still young enough to enjoy being out there getting in a pursuit or a
I
fight.
loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it. I was still jumping out of the side of the car, chasing down people,
right.
and they loved it, but I was at that age I could still do it, But yeah, I mean, I think some of the older guys, especially the chief deputy, which I could have gotten rid of him. And I'll never forget when I pulled in to be that I got elected the next day, he's waiting out in the parking lot. And he goes, "So what are you going to do with me?" And I said, "Well, if you want to leave me, I'll never talk to you again." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I want you on the team." We shook hands, and that's how I did business.
Yeah. How'd that relationship go during the time that you were a sheriff?
It went well, but then it fizzled towards the end when,
Yeah.
things happen.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of them are like that, but when you're in that position, you're young, you're 34, like when you first got into your spot, at that point, what did you think your legacy was going to be as a sheriff?
I didn't quite know because I saw so many years ahead of me. You know, Todd, I'm not going to lie. I wanted to do a few terms and then probably evolve into possibly, running for another political position. Even I could tell you, I thought about Congress. I thought about, being a senator. I had other aspirations.
Sure.
I really did because I was so young and, I was, kind of building up that resume. And, yeah, that's what I was kinda looking at.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. If you look back now, honestly and objectively, during kind of your first, little bit as a sheriff, can you think of any warning signs that, like, now you're like, that was probably a warning sign where I should have said, "Hey, I need to refigure this thing," that ultimately led you to your downfall? Was there anything early on that, that maybe you can think about now?
My ego.
Yeah.
I think my ego was one of my biggest enemies. Um, a lot of times people think your ego is a strength and it's actually a weakness. And, it allows you to have the inability to ask for help, to feel vulnerable,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I
And I
think a lot of guys would relate to you on that. Not even just in police work, but just in general, man. Ego is a killer of so many things if you don't use it correctly.
well, yeah, Todd, and sometimes when you get to that point and, I thought being the sheriff was the pinnacle of my life and my career, and it's not. And I thought, I think there was times when I thought I knew more than I truly did, and I should have leaned on other people, and I should have just used that word help. I need help, and I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't.
All right. So, biggest pressure of being the youngest sheriff in Ohio was,
Making everybody happy. Of course, the taxpayers.
yeah. I I mean, ultimately, the ones that keep you in your position or don't keep you in your position, right?
They are. And, you get a lot of complaints. One of the biggest complaints were, of course, we're close to the lake. We get a lot of snow. But, I was in charge of calling all the snow levels. People would complain, hey, if the school's not closed, you're shutting down factories for them, to actually make money. You would hear a lot of those complaints. Or then, just any kind of complaint. I'd have actually people stop at my home while I'm out grilling with my family and pull in my driveway and say, "Hey," and I was always patient. I would take them to the side, and say, "Hey, what do you got going on? I'll follow up. I'll meet with you." And that was the thing. I always took time for everybody, Todd.
Yeah.
But you can't, and I've learned, and I'm sure you've learned in all the business you have, can't make everybody happy.
All right. So let's set the record straight. August 2016, you were indicted on 43 counts,
Yes.
38 of which were felony.
Yes.
By December, you were sentenced to 4 years
Correct.
in prison. You pled guilty.
Yes.
Walk us through that. What did you do, and what did the court say you did?
I'll even lead you up prior to how the seed was planted, how it led me there. Does that sound good?
Sure.
So I talked about the childhood sports I was involved with. And during that time, I had broken both of my ankles. Um, I wasn't as good a shape as I used to be. I let myself go because I let the job control me and my career. And my ankles started to hurt tremendously. Where some days, if I was out with my family, even for on a vacation for a hike or a long, like, being at Disney, I barely could walk the next day. So my primary ends up saying, look, Kyle, you need to go see a specialist. I'm diagnosed with arthritis by the time I'm like 37 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
So I said, doctor, what do I take? He says, here, 105 Viking in a month. That'll do the job. Okay. Starts taking care of the physical pain. And then started enduring some mental pain. And I relate those two circumstances, that there was two circumstances that started this whole problem with struggling mentally. One, um, got called out to a scene. I went right out with my guys because I always went out with my guys like I talked about. I'm right there with them. I'm part of the team. I'm not just a sheriff. I'm part of the team. We have an individual who's inside a house, was talking about killing his family. The dad gets out. He's in there with a shotgun. What do? We end up going out there. I take the SWAT team. After several calls trying to get him out of the house, he won't. I say, guys, we got to get him out. Along with myself, I go in, we throw a flashbang in. He gets up, he points a shotgun, we took his life. That's strike number one against me. I took care of my guys, didn't take care of Kyle. The ego there, of course. I didn't need any help. I'm too strong. I'm the sheriff. I wear a badge. The family ends up, of course, turning against us. I get sued for $20 million. That's weighing on my life. It's weighing on my mind all the time. That drug out for several years. Strike number two that I attribute to my mental health and the decline and into what ends up being addiction. Two brothers and their friend go out in the mouth of the river. They fall through the ice. We respond, try to save them, pull them out. They all die on us. Again, I take care of my guys. My ego's too big. I got too much going on. I don't take care of Kyle. So as time went on, that lawsuit lingered on. We end up going through a federal trial, which we end up found and justified and won the case. But my mental pain, Todd, outweighed by far my physical pain. That's where my 105 Vicodin, they probably didn't even last a week anymore.
Yeah.
I needed more. I needed more.
Because at that point, you weren't just taking them for the ankle or the arthritis,
No, I was taking them. I was running.
just to feel normal.
Yeah, and it was so tough to feel normal. Todd, I couldn't even look in the mirror anymore. I didn't want to see this guy, you know?
Yeah.
I hated myself. Um, that's where I ended up graduating to Percocet. Um, I discovered, of course, my parents had them. They both have arthritis. My dad actually had back surgery. He would go to pain management. It got to the point that I knew my dad, uh, what date he would get his Percocets filled every month. And of course, I volunteered to go pick them up. And you know how they have staples on the bags?
Mm-hmm.
I carried a stapler in my truck, and I'd steal from him and deliver like I was the good son. And here I was stealing and manipulate my family.
You ever know? Ever ask you about it?
No, he knows now, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it got worse. I started to manipulate my doctors. Several I would go in between. Even my own jail doctor got Oxycontin even. And then, you know, things would run out where that wouldn't work. So what am I going to do? Well, we were the hub where they got rid of all the take back pills from, you know, when they dispose of all the old medications. And um, I was the good sheriff to go around and collect those and bring them. And then I would take those boxes and I would take them in my office. I'd lock the door and barricade those doors with chairs. And I'd dump them out like, you know, a kid or after trick or treat and go through all the candy. And then I would find exactly what I needed. I'll never forget the first time I did it. I found a bottle of 100 Percocets. I, I'll tell you what, I was never so happy in my life.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. And those are the ways I started to feed. Then I wouldn't say it, of course, my addiction. Because what I did in my mind, Todd, I justified it because they were pharmaceuticals. I had arthritis and they were prescribed by doctor and they were throwing them away. So guess what?
Right.
They were garbage.
It's not theft at that point.
No, it's
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
So this went on, of course, some time. And man, I was terrible. You know, so every morning I woke up, that was like a kid taking his Flintstone vitamins.
Yeah, sure.
I'll never forget my gun, my duty gun and belt would go above the washer and dryer in our laundry room, and the kids knew not to go. And that's where my stash would go.
Yeah.
That's where I go every morning and start my day. And that's how I ended my day.
Did your wife at the time, did she know you had an addiction?
No, she
No.
had no clue. Nobody. Look, I was one of the greatest actors around. I had a Kool-Aid smile. I walked around like they always say about clowns.
Yeah.
They're the most miserable guys sometimes. They got the makeup on with a smile. That's what I was. Nobody ever knew because I was such a great actor. I knew how to manipulate. I knew how to fool everybody, Todd. I even started to fool myself.
Yeah. So you said you're going to jail doctors. Like, how did you do that? Did like any of them ever question you or say, "Hey, man, like, whatever"? Like, tell me how that went down.
Nah, I'd say, hey, you know, I picked up a lawnmower, I hurt my back, or, you know, I sprained the. They all trusted.
Yeah.
It was who I was, you
Yeah.
know, and I had no trouble because, and I always had that great Kool-Aid smile and I was happy go lucky. I was happy on the outside, but dying on the inside, Todd.
Yeah.
I was dead.
So did the badge make it easy to kind of hide behind the stuff that you were doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it went on probably, you know, a couple years, you know, but it gradually, of course, got worse because of, you know, the occurrences that I experienced with the shooting and the drowning and just other stuff that the totality of things. And this is how it all started to take another turn. February 3rd, 2015, I go to the pharmacy and the pharmacist, Leslie, then I was so mad at her. But she calls me to the side, and I think, okay, she just wants to talk to me about probably somebody buying, stealing Sudafed or something like that. That they're mixing to make ice or crystal or something. And she says, "Kyle, you're done." I said, "What do you mean I'm done?" She goes, "You're going between multiple doctors and you're getting opiates. I'm calling all the doctors, and you are done as of today." And Todd, I'll tell you what, of course, I thought that was one of the worst days, but it became one of the greatest days.
Yeah.
My heart sank to my stomach and probably almost went through my ass because
Why did you think she was doing that at the time? Like, not now, but at that moment when she did that, what was going through your head? Like, what were you, justifying in your mind why she was doing that or going against you? Because at that point, you're used to everybody being on your team for the most part, right? Like,
I know.
I got the
But
badge, I'm
but
the
but
sheriff, I'm young,
but
like,
of course, at that time, I'm mad at her. I think she's trying to prohibit me from getting my narcotics. But now to look back, I know why she did it. She took an oath too.
yeah,
And that oath was like law enforcement to protect and serve. And that's what she was doing. And that's where that day, I never told anybody. I didn't tell my wife then. I went and flushed my last Vicodin down the toilet, and I got sick and sicker, and I got real sick. But the only way I could get through it, not telling anybody. And then, so my wife then would go home, go to school, because she was a school teacher. My kids would go to school. I'd put my uniform on, take off on my merry way, and look like I'm going to work. And then I'd turn around, pull my vehicle in, put the door down, and lay in there for days getting sick to get through the withdrawals.
yeah.
I mean, Todd, it got so bad. That's all I thought about. All I thought about were those Percocets. That's all. I mean, that's drugs, drugs. That's all I want. I wanted because that's all I knew. And that was how it got rid of my mental pain. So Todd, I struggled. I still today don't know how I got through those days. And I would even get on the internet going, okay, how can I figure out something new that can help me through this? But then I got so scared because I'm like, okay, I'll get caught up in that and then somebody's going to get me. So I was cold turkey. So then comes around the primary for my third term of reelection, and I get the local police chief, who's my neighbor, running against me. He decided there was some beef between us over some other things that I had no control over, and he ran against me, and I won by 62% of the votes. And I'm like, phew, guess what?
Yeah.
That was never brought up. There were other things brought up. We talked about where I was on Twitter with following porn stars and rappers. They brought that up, and that actually brought me some positive attention because a lot of people were coming up saying, "Kyle, good for you. You're a human being. You're not like some stiff." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of backfired on them. It actually made me more popular. So after the primary, some months go by, and then I get a phone call from the county prosecutor. He wants to meet with me. So I run down to his office, and he says, "Hey, you addicted to opiates?" I said, "No. What are you talking about?" I go, "I used to use them for my arthritis, but that's been months ago on that." I said, "Matter of fact, I'll pee in a cup for you right now." You know? He's like, "No, no, I just want you to know there's been a complaint filed, and they're going to be looking into the state." I'm like, "Oh no, here we go." So of course I get on the horn and I retain an attorney. So there was some rumblings, and I saw some of the agents sneaking around the county when I would be out and about. People would tell me things. And then, we go back to August 23rd, 2016, opening day of the Sandusky County Fair. That's when everybody's around, the judges, congressmen show up, senators, everybody, including myself, because I'm the top law enforcement official in the county. I'm there to help cut the ribbon and kick off the fair.
Right.
I get a call that night, probably 6:37, and my attorney, he got a call. Kyle, you got to go turn yourself in. I said, what's up? You got a 43 count indictment looking at 15 years in prison. You know, the doctor shop and theft of pills, theft in office, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Get off the phone. Of course, my wife and kids. I said, look, here's the deal. But they're out to get me. They want my job. I spun it, of course. That's what a great addict does. He spins and manipulates and lies and
Sure.
cheats. I go, turned myself in. I had to get booked in actually at my own jail.
Yeah. Now, how'd they know that you had an attorney?
Oh, because I let my prosecutor know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they knew, and he got the call.
Yeah. So before we jump ahead, there's a couple gaps that I'm seriously curious about, right?
Yes.
Who did somebody file who filed the complaint? How they end up starting this investigation? Was that database time where they were doing the doctor shop databases?
So that's how they got me at the pharmacy.
Okay.
The other stuff they put together also the one police chief that was involved, he filed the complaint because he had heard the rumblings, and then they put it together because I was picking up the take back boxes. And that's how it all started. And then there was also a detective that he ended up going to prison too. He was part of the complaint too, where he kind of figured out that I was addicted.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I'm getting confused here.
Okay.
How did they actually prove, or did they, that you were taken from the drop boxes? Was that part of the indictments? Were they able to prove that?
I ended up pleading and actually admitting to it at the end.
Okay, so that's that.
Yeah.
The detective, were you and him involved together?
Oh, we were great friends. I brought him
Okay.
over and made him a detective, and then things turned sour between us, and you saw that a lot. And
Yeah.
one day you're great buddies, and then things fall apart. And we did a lot of investigations together, and it came down. He actually wanted my position too.
Okay. But he knew you were doing some of these things? He knew you were addicted to opiates and things, or what?
Yeah, they started to put two and two together, and then they went and ran an ORS report, which through the pharmacy,
Yeah.
and I'll put it all together.
Yeah. Now, what was it? You said he went to prison also. So
He
what
did.
they ended up indicting him around the same time, or how'd that go down?
Just shortly after, actually.
Okay.
He actually went after mishandling of a homicide, trying to pin it on somebody else.
Oh, well, that's a little bit of a jump from the narcotics, but
Yes.
it makes sense. Now, did he turn state's witness or anything on you, or testify against you?
Yeah, they all did. Everybody did.
Yeah.
I know my chief deputy did too.
Yeah.
Everybody testified against me.
But what could they testify about though?
Um,
Besides him, okay, maybe he knew a little bit. Maybe the pharmacist knew,
Yeah.
she figured out you're doing that. But what would your chief deputy know? What would these other people know
I
that they
think
could
what they did,
provide?
they probably, h- how I acted, what I was doing, and also, me picking up the take back boxes. I mean, that's not what every sheriff in 88 counties do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they, when all came together, they put two and two together, and it equaled four. Todd, and I didn't want it to equal four, but it did. It equaled 4 years.
Yeah. So during that time frame, when all this happened, of course, I'm sure there's news stories out there when you're indicted. I mean,
Yes.
I've seen them, I've read them.
Yeah.
What news outlet got it absolutely right, and which news outlet just was off the deep end and got it wrong?
You know, here's what I didn't do. And I knew you can't ever fight anybody that buys ink by the barrel.
Yeah.
I learned that early on because I butted some heads with some of the, newspapers. But for the most part, they got it right. I manipulated doctors. I become a full blown addict, and then I almost became like what you call a junkie, and I hate that word.
Yeah.
but I didn't turn to the streets because if I would turn to the streets to purchase, my drugs, it'd have been long over a long time ago, you know what I mean? And I couldn't do that. And that's why I had to resort to other things. But no, the news media, I mean, yeah, they were tough on me, but I know that's their job. And but and so the only thing that I didn't agree with, so the day I got sentenced to 4 years, I was also exposed of having an affair on my wife too.
Yeah. How'd that come out?
They ended up getting my jail phone calls and played them in the media on that same day.
Now you ran a jail for years. I mean, you knew calls were recorded, right?
I did, but I didn't know that was going to be part of the sentence.
You just thought like, hey, they won. They
It's
got me going.
it,
Like they're gonna leave me alone.
right, and they didn't. And then, of course, that hurts my wife and my children. That's how they found out. I'll never forget that phone call to them. But then, like everything else, Todd, we're talking about, I ended up taking responsibility for all my actions.
Yeah.
And once you come clean on everything, like they say, the truth will set you free. And when I ended up letting go of all those things, the weight of the world was off me.
Sure. I can imagine.
You know, like, and the sad thing is, so when I got indicted, I bonded out and I continued to run for sheriff because I didn't want anybody. I don't know if you saw that about
So
me.
before you were sentenced, you were under indictment and you're still running for sheriff.
Oh, I'm out doing debates, marching in parades.
So what was that? Was that ego? I mean, did you think you were going to beat it at that point or what?
It was ego. I did. And it was shame inside of me because
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody to know.
Sure.
I wanted everybody to think these people were out to get me, that there's no way I could ever be an addict. And so I did. And then eventually it caught up with me. Um, I ended up, my son was going to turn 13. We went to hunter safety's class together and he was going to go deer hunting.
Yeah.
And
And this is why you're out on bond.
yeah, and he wanted a crossbow for his birthday. And I'll do anything for my kids because I love my kids.
Yeah.
They're everything. And I went and bought him a crossbow. A couple weeks go by. The attorney calls me. They had contacted him. Kyle, did you buy a crossbow? Yeah. They're gonna try to revoke your bond now. Like, oh my gosh. I said, I don't even have it anymore. I go, it's not even in the house. Because I don't care. Get ready for the paperwork. You're gonna have a hearing. So
How'd they know that you bought a crossbow?
they were following me.
Yeah.
They followed me. And I'll never forget, because my son's birthday is November 7th, November 3rd. I'm taking him to school. That was the day I had the revocation hearing. And he looks at me and says, Dad, am I going to see you tonight for dinner? I said, my famous last words, I got this. I got this, Dylan, don't worry. I go, they got me. They revoked it. It was all over. They wanted $250,000 cash. Cash. That's it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to cough that up. And that's where they sent me to Marion County Jail. And that's where I surrendered. And where I started to talk to my parents at least about my addiction. Didn't say much to my wife then because things were getting really shaky and that was prior to the sentencing. And that's where I went in and I went to my first AA meeting, which consisted of 3 people, and I was one of the 3. And I met with my attorney. I wrote a lot of letters to talk about my addiction and let the prosecutor, the judge know. And I had a lot of support letters that wanted to support me and help me get treatment. And then I went back December 13th, 2016. And they took me back, and that courtroom was wall to wall news media. Crazy, Todd. Crazy. Like something out of a movie.
Well, there's not a whole lot of bigger fish in the county than the sheriff.
And you're right. You're right.
I mean,
And
like county commissioner, like,
no, no,
they're nobody. You know what I'm saying?
no, and you're right. And law enforcement, addiction, drugs, yes.
Like, there's nobody, and I don't think a lot of people know this. There's virtually nobody in the county that can override the sheriff in criminal proceedings other than like the coroner. Is that still the law in Ohio?
It recently changed the last couple of years, but you're
Oh,
right.
okay.
And
But
that
that
it
used to
was.
be, right?
It was, yes, yes. And it was when I was the sheriff, and that's why I turned myself in. And it was so big, they had a live news camera on my home at the time too.
Oh, geez.
So I come and I'm transported back. The judge says, "What do you have to say for yourself?" And I'm broken and I'm crying. I'm as low as I can be, and I turn around and I apologize to everybody in that courtroom. It was tough for me, but I had to do it, Todd. I had to
Sure.
do that, and at least try to make those amends for what I had done. And I admitted to my addiction. I told the judge I needed help. And I went on to say, you know what? I love my children. I need to be here. And then she went on to tell me I didn't love my children. I'm a narcissist. And on top of that, I will give you the best treatment in the state of Ohio. You're going to prison for 4 years.
Yeah. So when you're crying in the courtroom, any news story that you read about that time
Yeah,
was were those tears for you, or were they
my kids.
for your kids?
Todd, I look, that 4 years, yeah, 4 years is a long time. The only reason it bothered me because didn't see my kids.
Yeah,
Other than that, like they say, prison terms, you could have done that standing on your head.
sure.
And that's prison talk.
All right. So the single worst decision that I made as a sheriff was,
Not asking for help.
yeah,
But was it? I'm happier now than I ever have been.
yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, Todd, giving you this story. We
That's
would
it,
have
man.
never met. And I don't know if your show talks about it. I'm a God-fearing man. And I found God in the penitentiary.
Sure.
And I'll talk about that. My first 30 days were in solitary confinement in the hole. That is where I had to make the decision to either go one way or the other. I knew I could get out. I would have a lot of connections while I was incarcerated. I could have come out and be one of the biggest drug dealers, figure out logistics, and make a lot of money because I knew the game better than anybody.
Sure.
But, or was I going to take this and be a better father, a role model, and somebody to look up to and utilize this and turn it into a purpose? And that's where I did. And I'm not going to lie, that was just me and God in there and nobody else.
Well, you had a lot of time to think about it, but let's talk about day one. You get sentenced and you end up in Allen Oakwood Correctional, right?
No, that's not day one.
That-
30 days is the day one in
Oh, really?
Grafton and intake, where I was 100 deep from people from Cuyahoga and they're stripping you down. And then I go to the hole.
Oh, okay. Jeez.
That's day one.
Yeah.
And that's where, they come pull you out, they draw your blood, give you, the only time I knew, Todd, it was time to eat in there, those concrete wheels would trigger me. Almost like Pavlov, the dog ringing the bell where he
Right.
would salivate. That's how Kyle was. That's how I knew it was time to eat. It was dark. There was no clock. It was just me and God. That was it.
So early on, you were on top of the world, man. Youngest sheriff.
I was.
Everybody wanted to be around you because people want to be around power. They want to
Yep.
be around the top dog. You end up in, you end up in jail. Paint us the picture. What was like? How did you feel? What were you going through? Like, what did that do to your identity before you really had the time to think about who you wanted to be when you got out?
So that was one of the things I did think about. Like, I no longer had that title. And that title, as I look back and we talk about my ego, that title became who I was. And I was losing who I truly was to that title. And that title, I realized then anybody's replaceable, Todd.
Hmm.
Anybody. I was replaced like that
Yeah.
in a New York minute.
Sometimes it takes us longer to realize that, but
It did. Um, at the beginning, it was rough. It was. I had some poor me days, but then I had to turn those poor me days into, you know what? I'm going to be a better person days, and I'm going to work on myself. And that's where I started to look at things differently. I knew 4 years was going to be a long time, but I needed to make the most of it. Um, when I first got out of solitary confinement, and see part of Allen was protective custody,
yeah.
and then they moved it, but I ended up signing out and I went to general
Yeah. And you
population.
start in protective custody because if you're law
You
enforcement or
you
whatever, like
have
they're going
to.
to put you there no
You
matter what.
have to,
Yeah.
right? But it was my decision. I signed out and left. It wasn't a popular thing with the warden and everybody, but I did it and I handled myself. I
Yeah.
was fine.
Now, did you feel like you needed to make that decision, or like what led you to make that decision?
See, protective custody is so controlled. There's not much movement. There's not. You don't feel like you're really a caged animal than half of a caged animal. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I knew I couldn't do that for 4 years, so I had to take the leap. You know what I mean? And I'm glad I did. Did I have problems with somebody? Yeah, I did. I handled it because he didn't understand my background, and everybody laughed about it because they're like, shouldn't have messed with him. And that's where I set the tone. And I got a lot of respect in there. Actually, one of my bunkie, one bunkie, he was part of the brotherhood, you know,
Yeah.
and those guys respected me. Um, my workout partner, he was a blood who was a Muslim. And I talk about this a lot. I started to want to know more about people, which helped to understand who I was and to open my mind. You know, he would be on his prayer rug all the time, and it'd be time for us to work out. And I'd say, Mario, what's the deal here? He's like, I got to pray. I got to pray to Allah. I'm like, oh God, here we go again.
Yeah.
He's like, you know what? If you don't like it, learn about it. He throws me a Quran. I go as far as reading the Quran. And then out of respect, I go and I do 30 days of Ramadan, and I fasted with him for 30 days. So I wanted to understand what his religious beliefs were. So I went that far. I figured, you know what? I'm going to be in here for 4 years. I'm going to really educate myself.
Yeah. You got a little bit of time.
I had a lot of time.
You can learn a few things.
And so I found myself doing those kind of things. I was in one program. It was intensive outpatient program, IOP, drug treatment. And of course, I was the one they would drug test you every week. I was the one that never failed a drug test. It's interesting. They put you in a yellow banana suit
Yeah.
if you failed a drug test. And I was the one that never wore a yellow banana suit. Something else I left out. Hey, when I first got off the bus, I had a guy waiting for some pills with me, and he said, "First one's on me, next one's on you, Overmyer. We know why you're here. We know who you are. We saw your story." And I said, "Well, there ain't gonna be a first one or a next one because I'm done. I'm gonna stay sober while I'm in here."
Yeah.
And I did every day, every day.
Yeah. I mean, because you were sober at that point though when you went in, right?
I was, but that would have been the breaking point for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, I got to do 4 years.
It would have been easy to.
How am I going to go? Right. How am I going
to
to get through that? But I had to make the choice.
Right.
And I had to do it for myself and for my children.
You know, people, and I hear it a lot, people say addict is an excuse. You know, now, and we're going to talk about what you do now later on, but how would you respond to people that think, you know, somebody that says I'm an addict or somebody says, you know, they're addicts, they can't control it. Like, how would you respond to the people that really feel that way?
You know, and I've had other people say that to me and,
Mhm.
you know, have a debate with me. And I said, you know, guys, you know my story. Do you think I woke up one morning and said, you know what? I want to be a drug addict. Then I want to humiliate my whole family and myself, go to prison for 4 years and lose everything. That was my choice. No, that's not what I wanted to choose. And I said, that would be the last thing I would want to do. But ultimately, I didn't ask for help. The disease of addiction, and it's an actual medical disease that's justified. And no, and everybody, it's not a choice, but you got to make choices during it to get better, and you also have to make changes.
Yeah, for sure.
And most human beings, Todd, as you well know, they don't they hate change. It makes you uncomfortable. Did I really want to get uncomfortable from filling that void in my head and get rid of all that mental pain? No, but I had to make choices and make changes.
Yeah. Thinking back, how do you think that your actions at that time affected your community?
I don't think they did as much as people think because I knew when I should be using. I was pretty choosy. I could control it that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like a functioning alcoholic, pretty much.
sure.
And that's the way I look at it. So
Do you think your arrest affected the community or did some major harm in the
it,
community at that time or
I think it did. You know why? Because betrayal. And I lied to people.
yeah.
And, I've done my best to make amends with people. And some of the ways I did it, I've been back in the community to speak, even for actually the court system, community organizations. And I've helped a lot of people back in the get sober. And those are my ways of giving back to try to, you know, say I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm generally curious when I hear stories such as yours, which is not often, right? But
No, no.
there's lots of stories that are similar, maybe just a different profession or something. But thinking back to the deputies and pharmacists and doctors that trusted you, um, have you been able to apologize to all of them, or did you feel like that was something that you needed to do? Like, do you? I guess what I'm getting at is, do you feel like you owe something to the people that you betrayed from then?
I do. I do. And I have been back quite a bit. And it's interesting, I get along with the law enforcement back there. Um, actually, I'm some of the sheriffs I'm still best friends with one of the sheriffs, Otto County, Steve Lavorchak. He had my back even through the whole thing. And he was one of my first phone calls when I got a cell phone, when I got out to check on me.
Yeah,
And, we're still great friends. And, the pharmacist, Leslie, she's an amazing woman. I went back and to her pharmacy and saw her and surprised her one day and hugged her and thanked her. And we came together and we're friends now. She's like a guardian angel.
yeah.
Um,
Is there anybody that you wish you could have apologized to that you haven't to at this point?
there's probably always somebody, Todd, but the way I try to do it is social media by showing and talking about what I do and about the disease to let them understand that I am sorry because I took responsibility and I turned that negative into something positive. And of course it wasn't that easy when I got out either. That's something we should probably talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, let's dig into that. So before we move on, finish this for me. The power blinded me to at that time. The power blinded me to blank.
I think I was stronger than I truly was.
Yeah. That's a hard one for a lot of us, man. I think a lot of us have been there, one way or the other, one situation or another. We've all been there at some point.
Todd, I think a lot of us forget we're only human, born to make mistakes.
Yeah. All right. The sounds, the smells, the threats. Like, paint a picture for everybody that's listening to this of what Alan Oakwood was like. Is there something like now that you're out that you walk into a room and this smell or odor or sound hits you and you're like, oh shit, like you got to pause for a minute. You're like, I feel like I'm back.
So, it's in it. Ramen noodles.
Ramen noodles.
Hey, and I continue to eat ramen noodles. I'll make breaks. I did a
Yeah.
lot of cooking while I was in prison, and I continue to. But
Some people don't know what breaks are.
breaks are a concoction that individuals in prison make to make basically a casserole because we don't have much. You have limited food. You can get that off the commissary. Um, I ate some of the things in there that I never thought I would, but I was very desperate. Um, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes, the corrections officers would throw away their meals in the trash. I'd reheat theirs and I'd be eating out of the trash, Todd.
Yeah.
So, um, Timberland boots are always a thing with me. I don't have them on today.
Is that what you guys had? What you wore when you're in the?
You could, and
Yeah.
I traded some things, probably, I don't know, a couple bags of coffee and 10 ramens, and I still have the ones I wore on the yard. And from time to time, and I actually was just talking to my wife today, I wanna get a new pair, a fresh pair to wear because I like them, but I still have the ones I wore in the yard, and I keep those for a reason, so I don't forget where I used to walk.
Yeah.
Because if I do, Todd, guess what? I'm one step away from you know where, going
Hmm.
back, and I don't wanna go back.
So, what do you think the biggest myths are about white collar criminals in prison or correctional facilities, or is there any out there?
You know what? Well, you hear that, federal, well, of course, is a little easier than, of course, than state, because there's more white collar. State is more gang oriented,
Yeah.
you got several gangs in it. I mean, I dealt with all the gang members. I mean, there probably wasn't a gang that I didn't get involved with, or talk to. You know, and I broke bread with so many different people. I'll tell you an interesting thing. So my first Thanksgiving, when I was in there, people invite you to cook, and we do a Thanksgiving together. And I'll never forget. Um, Mine was interesting. We all cooked, and I'll never forget. We're sitting there at a table together, and I sit and I look around, and I said, "Guys, man, this is an interesting Thanksgiving." I'm like, and they all laughed and said, "Yeah, because you're white," and all the rest of the guys were black that I
Yeah.
was hanging with. And I said, "It's funny you say that, but no, you're from that gang, you're from that side, you're from that. You wouldn't be doing this stuff on the outside, would you guys?"
Right.
I said, "Why does it take the penitentiary, even me, a white ex law enforcement guy? Why are we doing this here, but we can't do it on the outside?" And they look at me and they're like, "You're right." So it's unfortunate, and it made me learn the toughest times make you do the best things.
Sure.
And I think the toughest things in your life are the best for you, Todd. I mean, 4 years in prison, I don't regret it. Not a day.
Yeah.
I regret I missed my children for 4 years, but during that time, I invested in myself to be a better father and a better human being.
Oftentimes you don't realize it at the moment, you know?
There are a lot of days I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Once I walked out those gates and I got to hold my kids, that's when I realized.
All right, I got to ask you, and a lot of people are probably curious, being prior law enforcement myself, how many times, I'm not going to ask how many times, we always heard once you got him in cuffs, it was always once you got him in cuffs, man, take off that badge, bro, take off that gun, man, let's see who's blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You're in prison. You don't have the badge and gun on anymore. Did you hear that in prison at all?
No.
Never?
No. No, because I set the tone. I had it out with one guy, took care of it, and they knew how I stood. A lot of times they would call me sheriff still, and funny, a lot of them call me Gotti. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had a good prison sentence. I really did. I mean, I learned a lot about myself, other cultures, other people. It made me more empathetic towards human beings. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me, Todd.
Yeah. I would imagine a lot of guys would have challenged you more, but you're saying no. But, and I say that because one, you're law enforcement, but a lot of guys probably didn't know that, you know, college form of life, but you were a bodybuilder, you're into strength, like
Yeah,
you're a
yeah,
strong dude, man.
yeah. No, and they picked up on that, and it was interesting. I ended up, I became an inmate. I mean, I became 692-183.
Yeah.
That's my prison. It's tattooed on me. I got a couple tattoos while I was in prison too.
Yeah. Some prison tats.
Yeah. So, my bunkie, he was uh, in the Aryan Brotherhood, and I gave him 10 ramens my first Father's Day in prison, and he tattooed my kids' names on me to pay homage to them.
Really?
Those are something I wanted to take home.
That's like $10 worth of ramen
I
for a
know, but it
tattoo.
was yeah. So I got their names in the back, and I remember when I showed them, they were like, "Can't believe you did that, Dad."
Yeah.
But I missed my kids, and I wanted to take something home with me to remember.
Sure. What was the worst? What was the worst thing you dealt with in jail?
Well, I went through a divorce. That was tough.
Yeah, how far into your sentence were you when you guys officially got divorced?
Probably a little over a year was finalized.
Because and I think when I've heard your story, here's what's so interesting to me. You get sentenced, you don't see your family again after those phone calls are released, right? So everything happens after you're already inside.
Yeah,
Phone calls get released. You don't have the option to talk face to
for like
face
30
or
like those 30 days.
yeah,
I even tried to because it was during Christmas time, and the phone got disconnected. They pulled me right back in, and I was done. So it was like they really didn't even know where the heck I was, and
hmm.
here I was in the hole in Grafton.
Now, did you want a divorce at that time?
I did,
Yeah,
and I knew that I had done wrong, and there just wasn't that cohesiveness anymore. And let me tell you, my ex-wife, great mother. She did a great job while I was incarcerated, and she knows that. I've told her, and my kids ended up being, they're great kids,
yeah,
and they had to have a great mother for that. And she did allow me to speak with them every day on the phone. They just didn't want to visit me and see me in that capacity,
sure,
And I understand and I respect
yeah.
it. It hurt my heart, but I also respected them, you know.
Well, I think I understand. If I was to ask you to finish a sentence, I'm not going to do it because I know what the answer is. The smell that brings me back to prison is what, like cooked ramen noodles?
Yeah, gotta be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a big ramen fan, man. Like, I love ramen
uh-huh.
no matter where I'm at.
I do. But it doesn't hinder me from making breaks. Now, we're talking about it now. I'll probably have to do it this week and put a pizza bowl together.
Have you seen Portia Louder?
Mm-mm.
She went to prison for long time. It was like, I don't even remember how long it was, like almost like 20 years or something. She was on the show and she started giving us like, she has like this famous prison recipe that like everybody calls her for. She went for real estate fraud and mortgage fraud and things
Okay,
like
okay.
that. Wonderful lady now, like
Yeah.
super incredible. She stayed at my house when she came in town and we still talk to today. But yeah, we talked all about some prison food and like, and I asked her, I said, have you like, is there anybody out there that's made like a prison cookbook?
And there are some out there.
I was disappointed because I thought, man, I'm onto something here.
And there
I'm
are.
going to have a crazy
Mhm.
bestseller. And then she's like, yeah, there's a couple of them, Todd.
Yeah. And I think there's even like some food trucks that do it now too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
Which is great. But yeah, I would probably say that. But yeah, but
That's a weird way to get divorced, man. You get divorced while you're locked up.
uh-huh. It was.
Probably makes it a little bit easier. I
It
mean, I don't
it
know.
it, it was. And then I went through bankruptcy too.
Oh, geez.
So
Yeah.
I went through everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you end up transitioning through halfway housing and then you're released in 2020.
right.
Describe the first day of freedom to me. What was that like?
It's like it's surreal because it's like I've been locked up, and it's like you never thought that day would happen.
Yeah.
And you got to make sure you got to pinch yourself to know, okay, these 4 years are done, but I'm still on parole, and I had to put an ankle monitor,
Oh, yeah.
a big hunking one.
How long were you on parole for at that point when you got out?
So the ankle monitor was on, I know, over 30 days. Um, and I had 1 to 3 years. And of course, I had to drop urines, report, um, and I got off within a year. But it wasn't so easy when I got out. And I had been involved then with a woman actually that I knew from a childhood, and we got together, stayed there for a hot minute when I got out.
Was
Oop,
this the one that you got caught cheating
no,
with?
it's a different one. That
So,
we
you
cut.
guys started talking while you was in prison.
Yeah, we cut ties, and this
Okay.
one came around, and then out the door I went within quickly, and so I'm homeless.
Yeah.
Here I am. I'll never forget. I got like 6 bags of used clothes, and I'm calling my parole officer in my car. I got this little Jeep that um, I had gotten from the divorce. I was paying for, but at least I had a vehicle. And I'm calling my pro. She's like, "Look, Kyle, you're gonna have to find. You can't be homeless." So in a matter of a couple days, I figure this out, and I end up getting involved with a woman that I knew from Terra State Community College, Deb. She worked there as a librarian, and I was with one of the board of trustees. Actually, Governor John Kasich appointed me.
Yeah.
And I used to spend some time at the college, got to know her and her girlfriend, and they would send me cards and support me. So I called her by chance and said, "Deb, she's an older woman, like old enough to be my mom, and I didn't want to go stay with my parents because they had firearms, and I didn't want to hinder them." And she's like, "You know what? I got a spare room, and I think I got an air mattress." So that's where I flopped.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. And I go, "I got a place. I got a place." So she goes, "Well, now you got to get a job." And here I am, the disgraced sheriff, back in Sandusky County where I was serving as the sheriff, and I got to find a job. So who's going to hire me? But I took a chance, and I used to always go into Lee's famous recipe chicken.
Man, I love me some Lee's.
I love it. Favorite chicken,
especially the spicy chicken tenders.
Oh man, and I like their liver. I'm gonna lie.
You know, one of the great things about being in Dayton, I'm a huge UD basketball fan. University of Dayton, season tickets forever. They give away Lee's dunkers all the time, and if the team they're playing misses 6 free throws in a game,
Yeah,
you get free Lee's dunkers the other day.
wow,
it's great. Who would have thought that?
Lee's is the best.
Yeah, we got one right across the street.
Hands down, Lee's is the best.
Yeah.
So I knew Larry Bowman. He owned one there, and then he owns one in Sandusky. So I stopped there, and I'm like, "Look," telling him he's glad to see me, and I'm like, "I gotta find a job." He's like, "Got something for you." Like, "Oh, what you got?" "I need somebody to fry chicken back here." Bless you.
Thanks.
And I said, "Can you hire me?" He goes, "Yeah, $9.50 an hour." So I started frying chicken. That was my first job. I was happy. I was proud.
Yeah.
Here I am. I come out. I was a lot heavier. I had long hair. Start frying chicken, living at Deb's, trying to, build my relationship back with my children, with Michaela and Dylan. And then people start coming in. They find out I'm working in there, and of course, the pictures come.
Because by that time, 2020, internet's blown up, TikTok's out,
there's
Facebook's
memes
going.
all over with me, and
yeah,
so I'm like, you know what? Okay, I've been through worse than this.
Sure.
Instead of it tearing me down, it turned me up, and that's where I started to hit a lot of NA meetings, AA, get closer with my kids. Actually, it was interesting. I ended up getting my first job in addiction treatment. I ran into a guy that was like, "I know who you are. Why don't you stop over at our treatment center? Like to talk to you." So I did. He goes, "What are you doing now for work?" And I said, "I'm frying chicken at Lee's, man." He goes, "How much you making?" $9.50. "How about $11.50? You work as a behavioral tech on midnight shift." Are you kidding me? I mean, I started crying because I was so happy.
Sure.
And so grateful that somebody wanted to believe in me. So I went and told Larry. Once they were happy, they got balloons for me. They had a party, bought a cake for me.
Yeah.
They were so happy for me. Like, all right. So I go start working there. Gonna stay off social media. I wanted to fly under the radar. Well, one midnight shift, you know what? I can't hide forever. So I go on, and it starts to blow up in support. Like, people messaging me
Did
about
you
the
post
addiction.
something or just create an account?
I put in a new picture of myself
Okay.
and it blew up. And, then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started to. So I worked there for a little bit. I ended up finally getting an apartment in the hood, race kick doors in. And I'll never forget, some of the local dope boys, they're like, hey, what's up, man? Good to see you, KO. They'll call me KO,
Yeah.
and one of them comes up to me and goes, hey, you're one of us now. I'm like, he was right. I was one of them. I'd done time. I was accepted in the hood. I guess I had street cred then.
Yeah.
And some of those guys, they bring me down, meals, some of them from the hood. I can remember uh, the one girl and the guy, they brought me down actually some more chicken and collard greens and stuff like that. And I was doing okay. And then I dated a couple different girls and they fell out. And then things are going good with my kids. Then November's rolling around. It's getting close to holidays. And I get a message one day from a woman named Jennifer. And she says, hey, I've been involved with some nonprofit stuff in Columbus. I get up north, I'm in real estate. Love your story. Love to sit down with you and your girlfriend, grab lunch and talk. And I never forget, I was actually working out. It was on a Sunday, and I put LOL, laugh out loud. I don't have a girlfriend, but I'll eat lunch with you. I end up meeting with her, and that's all she wrote. Um, 6 weeks later, we got married. She asked me to,
6 weeks
she
later.
asked me to marry her.
So what did she want to talk to you about? Or was that just her pickup line?
I think it was still her pickup line. She
Yeah.
says no, but I don't believe her.
What did she want? Did you ever talk about something specific?
She wanted to talk about my story. She was intrigued, but I think she was more intrigued by me.
Yeah.
And of course it was. So we got married, and so that's when so my whole speaking thing started where I belonged to the Exchange Club too when I was the sheriff of
Yeah.
a community organization. And the president reached out to me. He was a friend of mine and that too from the past. And he took me to lunch. He said, you ever think about coming in to speak exchange? I said, you kidding me? I said, come on. Those are some of the people I upset. He said, I think you need to start doing it because you're a good speaker and come in and talk about your story. Just be honest how you are honest on social media. I did it. How it started to take off. And Jennifer had already been living in Sunbury outside of Columbus. And I was still living in Fremont. We were going to try to make it work after we got married January 2nd, 2021.
Oh, you cheater. That's easy to remember, dude.
That was her idea too.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So she's like, well, I guess we'll commute, you can commute and come down and then we'll, this distance relationship marriage. And would you believe 7 days later, I get a phone call, organization from Florida, saw me on social media and got involved, offered me a job in Columbus.
Yeah.
So I left there, moved down there, and then I'm working and she's like, people are starting to ask you to speak. She goes, why don't you put something together and call it something? I said, what? She goes, well, what about KO addiction? And she goes, knockout, your KO, boxing. She created that whole,
Sure.
that's how it all, and it started to take off. My relationship continued to get stronger with my children. I have 2 stepchildren with her now. And my parents, of course, are great. And then one thing led to another. I worked for an organization in Pennsylvania for a short time. Then I helped open a behavioral hospital in Cambridge. And now, here I am, a director of business development for Complete Healthcare, overseeing 10 outpatient addiction treatment centers in Central Ohio. And then during that time, I started doing podcasts, and I've been writing a book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be coming out, man. We're gonna pump that here in a little bit because I think it's gonna be pretty incredible. But what's your sobriety date? I don't think I asked you that.
It's February 3rd.
Yeah.
February 3rd. So I have over 10 years.
Any addict that has recovered and you're always an addict, right?
Always.
And uh, everybody has their date, right? Like we should know that because that's important for us, right? But you've talked to plenty of first responders at this point, plenty of youth,
Hmm.
and shared your story. So if you could sum your message up when you speak in front of groups in like one sentence, what would it be?
This is my famous line. My wife thinks she made it up, but I did.
Man, they think they do
Of
everything.
course they did. And then you gotta admit it at home because you gotta sleep with them. You know that.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
your past should never define you. It only refines
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. So I think one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot, and only because I've been in law enforcement for so long,
you.
you're not an isolated case, dude. There's police officers out there that, just like any profession, there's bad apples, right? But there's police officers out there right now today, as we do this podcast, that are pocketing pills. There's officers out there that are maybe not turning in the bag of flour that they get off the dude, or maybe not putting the gun in the evidence locker. If you were to give a message to those guys right now, and you were looking this camera right here, what would your message be to a police officer out there that's jacked up with something like that?
You're not alone. There is always help. Don't be another Kyle Overmyer.
It's good, man. I love it. One of the things I want to do while I had you in here, because I haven't heard you do it on any other show, and hopefully you'll play along with me here
Okay.
a little bit, because actually I think it can be powerful, and I actually think if you're not already doing it, that it could be part of what you do, really. And I want to do an autopsy of the leadership failures that were at your sheriff department that allowed you to be able to do these things. So if we kind of do that and we do an autopsy of the leadership failures at Sandusky County that in the systems allowed you to get away with this for a while, because it's not like you got caught overnight. Uh, what would you say those were?
Awareness, education. Um, I think there's a lack of intentional communication. We can all communicate, but you got to be more intentional. In some of the things that you hear about today, how are you doing today? Just that simple how are you doing?
Yeah,
And you know it, Todd. Some people can say it in a bullshit way, but sometimes you can read through it, especially in law enforcement.
sure.
And when it comes down to it, it's just you got to talk about this stuff more, and maybe I'm getting a little off track of the autopsy of the leadership, but I've learned with me and myself is a key and a strength now is being vulnerable. Who cares what everybody else thinks? When it comes down to it, that's the only judge you got.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I don't know. And you know what? Before, when I was the sheriff, I wasn't half the man I am today.
Yeah,
And I cry a lot. I cry at movies. I cry at church. I cry just listening to things, songs. My wife will be driving. I'm like, start, what the hell? I'm like,
dude, I know the feeling, man.
I'm like, it hits my heart. And,
Yeah,
and I always tell people now, boys pout and men cry.
yeah. You know what I think it is? Because I've experienced this. Like even, and it started a couple years ago. I coach a lot of sports, and I found that I was no longer able to give the same motivational talks either after the game, whether we won or whether we lost. Anything that was going to be like emotional for
Hmm.
me. I used to be a dude, man. Like I could get through anything, and then I found myself I couldn't even get through them anymore. I was crying, and it took me a while to figure out why. You tell me if you agree with me or not. What I settled on, the reason why I can't do it anymore, why while I'm emotional, while I cry often, is because in those moments when I'm delivering a message to somebody or some people, whether it's an adult or whether it's a youth, whether I'm on stage talking in front of thousands or in a room talking to three, it makes me think about the bad shit that I've done in my life that I'm not proud of every single time. And like, I'm not emotional about what I'm saying. I'm emotional about what it causes me to think about.
And I agree with you. And and one of the things that I struggled with the most was guilt.
Yeah.
hurting my kids. And now being in tune with my emotional side and being more empathetic, I'll never forget. So my son Dylan's 21, and this has been probably 2 years ago. And I really continue to struggle, even though I go to therapy and talk to somebody about all this now monthly. That's how I do it. And I stopped him the one day, and we were out doing something. And I said, Dylan, I'm really sorry about all I did. He stops and looks at me, and he's probably 19 years old. He's still a kid. Now he's 21. He looks at me and goes, Dad, it's over. You shut up about it.
Yeah.
I'm over this. And I'm like, why did I just have to have a kid who's 19 tell a grown man who's I was almost 50 years old, that don't be guilty no more. It's over. And I'm like, that hit home with me because I still had all that guilt. And I'm not lying. Sometimes I'll think about things like, I didn't get to teach him how to shave.
Right.
And he mentioned it one time, and he's like, oh, you didn't? And I'm like, oh, shit, man, that screws with me, because that's part of being a dad, and him evolving into his manhood, but I was there to see my daughter graduate from college, my son graduate from high school, and college, and um, you know, he won a state championship in football. I got to see him play baseball, football, but I got to see those true moments, but I didn't get to see some of those important parts of their growth.
Yeah.
And I can relate with you because I'll think about stuff and then it sparks up nostalgia, and I'll cry.
We all have different reasons, man.
We do.
And with the kids, I feel that like all the time. Not because I was in prison or jail and I missed stuff, but my daughters live 3.5 hours away from me with their mom up in Canton, Ohio, getting up close to your woods. And I missed so much of their life because at the time they moved up there, I was working 2 and 3 jobs to pay child support, to pay my bills. I mean,
Yep.
I still lost everything. I still got foreclosed on. My car's repossessed, but I missed so much shit. Like even the little dad-daughter dance and things like that, right? Like, and those are the hard. Kids are tough, dude. Kids are tough.
Todd, this has all made me realize that time is the greatest currency.
Yeah,
And you know what? It's priceless.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Let's say there's a county out there that hears your story, knows your story, and oftentimes in counties, sheriffs are, one of the most powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
If a county hired you to come in and consult and to design the oversight for them now, can you think of 3 tripwires that they could implement that would have caught the 2015 Kyle Overmyer?
I think, of course, addiction wasn't openly talked about within the core of law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I think there should be maybe quarterly breakout sessions. There should be also a second thing is somebody that's trained in that sheriff's office, at least 1 to 3 people that can identify some of those warning signs of addiction within the workplace. And 3, always have 24/7 help ready.
Yeah.
I think those are 3 important things but also, assure those people that just because they're asking for help doesn't mean their career is over. That badge means everything to a lot of people, and that.
Absolutely.
And I think when people think that it's all going to be over with and they're going to lose everything, and then the shame sinks in, and then guess what? They keep doing what they're doing. So I think those would be good things to implement for consulting. I mean, I can guarantee there's another Kyle Overmyer out there somewhere.
Sure.
As
much as we're breathing right now, there's another Kyle Overmyer out there right
there
now.
is. He hasn't just got caught or he hasn't died yet,
Is there a policy you've thought about that you think, man, every sheriff department across the country should implement this policy to prevent diversion?
Yeah. You know what I think? I think they should mandate counseling for all law enforcement
Yeah,
because you know what? Even if they're in there, they take an hour. There's maybe one thing, remember, that they can take away from that session that's going to help them
sure.
because you know it from being in law enforcement. Human beings weren't supposed to see what we saw.
No, no.
That's not,
And
and
they weren't supposed to be able to have to handle it the way that we had to handle it.
correct. It was then it was to see it and move on to the next one.
Hmm.
And in this day and age, in 2025, it's only getting worse.
Yeah, people ask me about my law enforcement career a lot of times, and if I'm being honest, people, do I have PTSD? Is there things that I see in my dreams sometimes that like wake me up and frighten the shit out of me? You're damn right there is,
Well,
and
sure.
but you're doing it now. You're seeing a therapist
Hmm.
and all that, and that's one of the things I don't talk about a lot. But dude, I do too, right? And like, it took a long time for me to realize that it's okay to talk about things. It's okay to have another guy friend that you can call and say, "Man, I just need to get some shit off my chest."
I have a great therapist. So on my 50th birthday, I took a picture with him and put it on social media.
Yeah,
And he was proud of that. He's like, I can't believe you want to do this. And I said, well, I'm going to because I want to lead by example and to help other people. And Todd, you wouldn't believe some of the first responders that I get people that reach out from seeing me on podcasts, seeing me do posts. I've done a news story down in Columbus before, but I've helped a lot of first responders because of me talking about it,
sure.
but and I'm blessed to do that. And like I said, I thought being the sheriff, that was the pinnacle. I don't think I've seen my true pinnacle yet. I really don't. But I know right now it's got to be helping people
Yeah,
and
I
sharing my story.
it is. Every person that hears your story is going to be helped in one way or the other. But let's talk about that because there's a lot of social media is a ruthless place. Like, there's
Yeah,
some mean people.
there are.
The worst comment I've got, and I'll ask yours. I was laughing with Miles. You met him, my video guy. He's always
Yes.
one behind cameras, and of course, like, I don't let things bother me. But I remember one. It was one of my videos went viral. It was like 1.5 million or
Yeah.
something in a week. And this comment from this guy like still stays with me. And if he's listening, you know what? Fuck you. He's like, man, dude, like, what are you doing, bro? You look like you just got forcefully pushed out of your mom's vagina with a bunch of baby oil stuck in your hair. I don't know why I just told you that, but that's the vulnerable side of me saying, you know what? No other comment. Like, they can call me a slime lord,
Yeah.
like slum lord. That's the only one that ever bothered me. No. But let's talk about those negative people. And not just you, but other people that
Mhm.
talk about their story. Some people say that, when you're talking about your story and you're going on podcasts, you're going on stages, or you have a career that's kind of based around your crime story,
Mhm.
that you're trying to profit off of that crime. Um, do you agree with that? I mean, or do you think that felons should be allowed to brand off of the redemption?
Well, I believe in second chances. So that's a way of second chance is what I look at it. And it's also taking our wrongs and making it right.
Yeah,
And also, like what we're talking about, helping people, leading by example. And we're taking responsibility for it and we're educating them, look, don't do this. Or also, if you need help like I talk about, ask for it. So I don't think there's a problem with it at all. And everybody unfortunately has done something and everybody's they say is one step away from that. So
sure.
come on. Nobody's perfect. Some people just haven't got caught. But I don't feel guilty by doing that because I know that I've helped so many people
Sure.
and I'm going to continue to do that. And at the end of the day, I mean it's turned into a profession, but most importantly, it's a purpose.
Yeah. There's groups out there and movements out there that have tried to get legislation and things on the floor to limit the money that people can make off paid speaking gigs and stories and
Mhm.
books for ex officials that have been, convicted of some type of corruption. What do you think about that? Would you support laws like that, or you
No.
think no?
Absolutely
I
not.
mean, I thought you'd say no.
No, no. And It's interesting because probably some of those people, what do they always say? Those who throw stones that live in a glass house shouldn't be throwing stones.
Yeah. All right, here's the hard question. It's probably easy for you though. If telling your story uh, didn't help you get a job, didn't help you get speaking gigs, if you never made a dime in any way or got a job or anything from telling your story, would you still tell it?
Yes.
How come?
Okay. I'm not here to preach. I'm here to teach.
Yeah.
I believe in God. I gave my life to Jesus Christ along with my wife 2 years ago, and I'm his servant. I'm his servant, and I'm not going to go off on a whole thing about God, but I believe He had to break me down and build me back up to what He wanted to use me as a vessel to help people. And yeah, I don't care. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'll probably be telling this story the day I die
Yeah.
because if I help one person and I know I've helped more than that, that's what God wanted me to do. And a lot of people get it all twisted sometimes and they get caught up in all the monetary things, the cars, the flash, and the jewelry and everything. And you know what? This ain't home. This is temporary, Todd.
I agree.
There's home. And I'm just here preparing for home. So there's my answer. I'm gonna keep telling it. I don't get paid for every speaking gig.
Right.
I didn't get paid to come here tonight, did I?
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy you dinner, you know?
Hey, but you know what?
Yeah.
It's somebody gonna listen to this, and guess what? Gonna save a life, man.
Yeah. I love it, man. And I love your story and I love what you're doing. Now, I was vulnerable and I said the harshest comment that I've heard on social media. Have you had any like off the wall or any harsh comments on your social media? Anybody post anything that was stupid?
Oh man, what's the worst thing? I mean, of course, it was interesting, of the memes at first, but I think, and my wife is really like astounded by it, but it's like, how do you have such thick skin?
Yeah.
And I was taught by a corrections officer before I got out. She had told me, Mrs. G, she said, let me give you a little lesson, Kyle. Remember these 3 F's in life and you're going to be okay. If somebody don't feed you, finance you, or it don't matter.
Right.
And that always stuck in my head because she's right.
Yeah. I love it.
The
Dude.
3 F's. And
That's
she's
it.
right. And guess what? I'm all right.
I've heard that somewhere. And there was a motivational speaker I listened to that said that somewhere, not exactly like that, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I love it, dude. And I love the story. And you got some cool things coming up. You're doing big stuff, and you haven't blown up yet. You're going to blow up. But talk to us about your book. You got a book that you've been working on?
Been writing a book, working with a co-author. This has been going on for like 2 years. If I don't get this thing done, Jennifer's just going to probably kick me out of the house and I'll be homeless again. But I want to finish this by the end of the year. It looks like it's going to be called Prison Prodigy. That's what the title of my book's going to be called. It's going to be pretty much a lot of stories, raw details about my addiction, being in prison, about coming together with my kids. And it's a no holds barred because, like I said, I don't have any bones left in my closet. I got nothing to hide anymore. You can Google me, find out all the dirt that I did, about, stealing pills, cheating on my wife. You know what? That's the old me. This is the new me, but people need to learn about the old me to see who the new me is. And hopefully they can learn from their book. And guess what? It'll help them come to a reason and grow as a human being. And like I said, save a life.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you get it done, man, I'll pump the links, and I want one of the first copies of it. We'll make that
You got
happen.
it,
But
Todd. You
dude,
know
I
it.
can't say how much I appreciate you sitting down and laying out your whole story here with us. But for all of you that's out there right now, I want you to understand something. Addiction doesn't care if you wear a badge. Addiction does not care if you're flying a plane, if you're a taxi driver, if you're working in a restaurant, if you're a waiter, if you're a videographer, if you're an engineer. Addiction doesn't care. And if you're struggling tonight, I want you to reach out. Reach out to an organization that can help you, and go down to the links. I'm gonna put some information for you guys, some resources down there that can help you out. Don't wait. Don't let it bottle up. There's so many resources out there that can help you right now. And if you're a police officer, if you're in another profession, especially the guys that are out there and you're struggling with something mentally. And if you're bottling things up and not dealing with it and you need some help and you need to talk to somebody, number one, I'm here. Slide into my DMs. I'll respond to you and I'll make sure that we have that conversation. And I will also drop some links for you guys down below here. All right. So we're going to throw some links to Kyle, my guy right here down the bottom as well. And Kyle, what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can reach out to me. I always give out my cell phone number, 419-457 or 455-0793. And also you can get a hold of me at kyleovermeyer7@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook, LinkedIn. I promise you, I always return messages because I always believe when people are ready, it's like frying the eggs. When a skillet's hot, you better throw them in and get them done.
Yeah, man. Make sure you guys are supporting KO Addiction also. And until next time, we'll see you.
Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again.